to Two Guys, One Pod, Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Rick Porter, joined by my host as well. I realized that I have introduced you as my co-host every time, and I feel like that's a little bit unintentionally demeaning, and I did not want to do that. It's just something that I have just now realized after doing the show for almost 2 years. So, my apologies, my good friend Justin. You ready to get into some ADP review?
I don't take it that way at all, because when I talk about the podcast, I'm like, hey, yeah, co-host and co-founder, I don't feel like it makes it demeaning at all.
Yeah, it's just like I introduce myself as the host and you as the co-host, and it's just, you know what? Forget I said anything. You're still the co-host. We can move on.
So listen, I do take exception to you not recognizing me by my God-given title, the legendary ball knower, aka your favorite podcaster's favorite podcaster, aka Chev90, aka Chev Dewar Sanders, aka co-host of the Dynasty Pulse, and Titans Uncovered, and this fine podcast as well, which is now top 10 on Spotify amongst fantasy football podcasts. Shout out to the listenership. I think it might be time for us to give them some sort of name. I don't know.
I don't know either. We can workshop that. We can have a maybe once we hit a certain number of downloads in a week, we can put up a poll and say, "Hey, go vote on this as to what we want to call you guys," and make me have them have some kind of voice in it. Or we can be dictators. Like I don't care. I'm okay being a dictator. Apparently, I'm a heel already, so I can lean into that. People already hate me for some reason. That's fine. I'm okay. Yeah, didn't realize that was a thing, but hey, you know what? It's fine. I hate y'all too. Just kidding. I don't hate all y'all. But like,
you gotta wear the black hat.
I mean, the thing is, usually the heel realizes they're the heel. I was just that like YouTube short that went viral. I was like, am I the baddie? What? I didn't realize this. But hey, not that I care. I'm fine being the heel. If you guys want to hate me, go for it. But we can move on. There's just a realization happened on my part.
Honestly, like this is the reason. So the reason I said, hey, go interact with the comments is because it helps the algorithm. But at the same time, I wasn't thinking like, hey man, there's gonna be a bunch of mean things in there about you, because that's just I never have been one to read the comments. Even now, I try not to respond in the way that I would in previous discords or group chats to people that I think are really dumb when they say dumb things. So I don't necessarily let it bother me. Like, for example, I was reading some comments today and a guy misspelled like 47 things. I didn't even make fun of him. He was telling, he kept tagging me. He kept tagging me about being the grammar police, and I never said a word to him about being the grammar police. I never was like, hey man, I know that it's a struggle with comprehending that redraft players are playing Dynasty more, and that's changed the way that the game's played. But also some things that'll just really, really get you whooped sometimes is the difference between there, and there. I mean, hey, well, I know these can be hard concepts.
Every once in a while, it's like, hey, somebody's like, we should defund the Department of Education. I'm like, hey, maybe we shouldn't do that. And then I realized the Department of Education has consistently lowered people's ability to tell the difference between there, and there. I'm like, hey, maybe you're onto something with that. Because not that hard, man. Not that hard.
Listen, you have firsthand witnessed the transformation that I've undergone over the course of the last 2 or 3 years, from being someone who will absolutely eviscerate someone for doing something like that, to just being like, haha, hey man, you're funny, and going on about my day.
So, I will say that this is all in relation to FFD's video about the QB crazy reaction episode, projection episode. If you want to go and watch that, it's on their YouTube channel. Great guys over there. We recorded it with Casey. Apparently, I said some rather inflammatory things about the Jets. And one of the things that I said was, hey, Breece Hall didn't produce last year. And one of the comments on there was like, Jets fan 97. And I mean, this dude wrote in all caps, he doesn't know our offensive line basically died last year. And da-da-da-da. Like, he just went on a rant. So I was like, you know what? He's not being explicitly mean. He's just typing in all caps. So this is going to be one I respond to. So I respond to him. I was like, hey, man, I wasn't trying to say that I think Breece Hall is trash. I was just saying that on a 17-game season, this is what he produced. And as a fantasy player, I don't like it that much. I would love for him to still be good. I think he's still a good athlete. I want him to be great for fantasy and great for real life, period, comment. And he responded to that, and he was so not that I'm deserving of any respect, but it was like a cordial interaction in the comments section. And I was like, you know what? Not everybody's stupid. Like, this is a reasonable interaction. I can come back.
That's
for
the
this.
beautiful
This is fine.
part about about that comment section is like, as long as you don't do what I would have done in 2022 and tell them about themselves and how, they're not very smart people, you can have a pretty positive dialogue, except for with their guy. You just avoid that guy at all costs.
Yeah, that guy can go outside and touch grass. But we can get to the meat of our episode, No Diddy. We're going to be reviewing some positions here within the ADP of a best ball draft. The ADP that we'll be using is coming straight from Underdogs. You can draft best ball over there right now, pre-draft. Not a sponsor yet, but we're going to get through as many of these as we can. We've got the stats for 24 typed up, but we will only be able to get to so many in the time that we have allotted for the show. You ready to get into it, Justin?
I was born ready, and now I'm here. Let's get into it.
At the 101, currently, Ja'Marr Chase. He finished last year with 175 targets, 127 receptions, 1,708 yards, and 17 total touchdowns. Ja'Marr Chase was a Triple Crown winner, I believe the fourth ever. You can correct me on that if I'm wrong, but just a masterclass season. He was necessary last year. By everything that we have seen, he will be very necessary this year. Do you agree or disagree with this ADP?
I'm buying this ADP.
Absolutely. Like, this is full. This is smash. This is, don't big brain it. Ja'Marr Chase, fantastic offense, attached to Joe Burrow. He's got his wide receiver 2 across the field to keep double coverage from being over there all the time. Just select Ja'Marr Chase at the 101, and we can move on.
I would like to point out also that he is the youngest Triple Crown winner in NFL history by 4 years. So he did it at age 24. I believe Cooper Kupp was the second youngest to do it at age 28.
He's Ja'Marr Chase, certified good at football.
Yeah.
Hashtag analysis.
Saquon
Barkley comes in at the 102. He is the first running back taken off the board. He finished last year with 345 rushing attempts, 2,005 rushing yards, 13 rushing touchdowns, 43 targets, 33 receptions, and 278 receiving yards with 2 receiving touchdowns. That is in 16 games. He did not play the final game of the season. I'll start off. I'm not buying this ADP. I'm selling it, and I'm going to buy a later running back as my RB1.
Interesting. So yeah, I'll buy this. I'll buy that he could regress a little bit in the yardage category and progress from a touchdown efficiency standpoint, and we could still be looking at RB1. I mean, the ecosystem lends itself to that. Honestly, I think you know what? I'm going to sell this one because we're going to talk about
Interesting. Whoa, that was a very Jeff Goldblum roundabout talking your way into an argument. That was interesting to listen to.
Yeah.
What's the reasoning there?
The tush push and the lack of utilization in the passing game, if this regresses to 345 carries for 1,500 yards and 13 touchdowns, I mean, he probably falls to RB4.
I would say around there. Yeah, without the passing work, sure.
Yeah, without the passing work, which this is not to say that Saquon Barkley can't catch passes. He's got a 91 reception season under his belt as a rookie, no less. So I think that just the regression from 2,000 yards. I mean, if he's already got one of the greatest postseason resumes of any running back in NFL history after this year. So I would say that if he does this again, then yeah, sure. We're gonna just ride Saquon Barkley in the sunset. I've always said that he's one of the most unique talents ever. I would like to leave myself some room for error and select a guy who also does get the passing work and gets the lion's share of volume as my RB1. So I'm gonna sell Saquon as an RB1, as the RB1.
Agreed. Running backs don't repeat at running back one very often. I'm in the middle of writing an article for the Fantasy Sports Advice Network about that topic. And this is not hate on Saquon Barkley at all. He had an otherworldly year. He's an otherworldly talent in a great offense on a great team. And he can still have a very, very, very good year, a very, very efficient year, and still not return on this ADP. But we can move on to Bijan Robinson, my actual RB1 in my early rankings, my way too early rankings before the draft that will definitely shift. 304 rushing attempts last year, 1,456 yards, 14 touchdowns, 72 targets, 61 receptions, 431 receiving yards, and 1 receiving touchdown. I want to emphasize that 1 receiving touchdown on 61 receptions. That's a lot. I think a full year with, as you call him, Captain Durag, as he is legally known, Michael Penix, behind or under center, however you want to say it, with Drake London and Kyle Pitts or Darnell Mooney or whoever the secondary pass catching option is, since it most likely won't be Kyle Pitts. I think this offense is going to hum, and they're going to have to hum because that defense was awful last year.
Yeah, full stop. No equivocations. I think that one of the ways that you can minimize the mistakes or minimize the exposure of a defense that's less than stellar, that's now released Grady Jarrett, a stalwart of that defensive front seven, is to lean even more on the running game. And we saw exactly 60 touches be removed from Tyler Algier and directly given to Bijan Robinson. And we saw the University of Texas Bijan Robinson come through for you in your fantasy squads in 2024. Now, I said this in the top 5 running backs episode, and I'm going to say it with my chest right now. This is my RB1. This is my dark horse candidate for RB1. I'm going to go ahead and go a step further. This is my RB1.
Full stop. No dark horse. Michael Penix started the last 3 games of the season. In those 3 games, Bijan went 22 for 94 and 2, 17 for 90 and 2, 28 for 170 and 2. He also had 12 total targets. That's 4 per game. That's just fine when you're putting up the numbers that he's putting up on the ground. And like I said, and that was Michael Penix Jr.'s first 100% action with this offense were the last 3 games of this season. Now he gets a complete offseason. He gets practice time with the actual elite offensive pieces, not the twos anymore, and he gets a full camp as the starter. He gets a preseason as the starter. I think that this could not only be an RB1 season for Bijan Robinson. I was not expecting for us to agree on Bijan Robinson, so I'm kind of taken aback by that. But I think that this could be a very good year for the Atlanta offense as a whole.
Yes, I think that what we were projecting for the Atlanta Falcons offense in 2024 will actually be a little flop lag, and you'll get some fantasy fatigue, and people will be out and have many more questions and answers about the Falcons offense. But I think that this is a tremendous buy opportunity because Bijan Robinson is every bit the talent the quintessential running back one talent. 61 receptions, 1,400 yards in his second year, 14 touchdowns, and all of those have a lot of room to improve, if we're being totally honest. So I thought about this, and like I said, it's really difficult for a running back to duplicate success at RB1. So I don't have to go far. I don't have to look far in order to find my 2025 RB1.
Fourth overall, we've got Justin Jefferson. He's wide receiver 2 at the position. 154 targets, 103 receptions, 1,533 receiving yards, 10 receiving touchdowns. Small note, 10 receiving touchdowns does tie his career high. So Sam Darnold coming in, or when it was preseason, we're still going through the draft process, whether it was Sam Darnold or J.J. McCarthy. I think most people were statting him for between 6 and 8 receiving touchdowns.
Yep.
He does come in with those 10. So sometimes you can't big brain it. I think he was taken as like wide receiver 6 off the board in 8 by ADP, or last year 5 to 6 by ADP in redraft last year. And it's just time to recognize that it's Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. Maybe you want to throw CeeDee Lamb in there, but I mean, last year recency bias doesn't help that case. But if you want to make this a Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson tier, space, the rest of everyone, I'm not going to argue with you that hard. Justin Jefferson's really good at football, and he might be hampered by a first-year quarterback with J.J. McCarthy. He's not a rookie anymore, but he has 0 snaps real time in the NFL. So that could hurt this offense a little bit. But having seen what Kevin O'Connell has done with Nick Mullins and Josh Dobbs and a late-stage Kirk Cousins and a late-stage Sam Darnold and pretty much anybody who has been under center, it's been fantastic with Kevin O'Connell. So I'm not going to doubt him this time.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Absolutely. I'm gonna buy this. I'm gonna buy this. I think that we've seen Justin Jefferson post about a 64% catch rate with Nick Mullins and Josh Dobbs and all those guys. And that was part of my evaluation process that led me to end up being really way higher on Justin Jefferson than I was initially throughout the best ball draft season. Once we statted guys out. So I think that this is about the floor of what you can expect. Now, if J.J. McCarthy is a plus level passer, that 154 targets probably turns into about 116 to 120 receptions. We're back up around 17 to 1,800 yards, and 10 receiving touchdowns is a gimme, depending on this type of target volume. So I'll buy Justin Jefferson at the wide receiver 2, although I do have another receiver in the tier with he and Jamar Chase. I'm still buying him at wide receiver 2 right now.
I think I know who we're going to talk about. And if you wanted to make it Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, I'm not going to fight you. If you want to add your third wide receiver, depending on who it is, we'll see. We'll talk about it. Let's just talk about it when we get to it. Jahmyr Gibbs comes in as the running back 3 at the position, the 5th pick overall. He had 250 rushing attempts, 1,412 rushing yards, 16 touchdowns, 63 targets, 52 receptions, 517 receiving yards, and 4 receiving touchdowns. He loses Ben Johnson, but the offense stays pretty much the exact same. All the integral pieces are still there. They've extended linemen. They have hopefully they have Jameson Williams for the full season, and he's not buying weird gas station pills anymore. But like this is a reroll. I got halfway into that, and I was like, Tyler just said that we can't talk about certain things on the show anymore. So let me pivot real quick.
Weird gas station pills.
Listen, it is what it is.
That's PG rated enough. We'll take it.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So I mean, this is a reroll. This reads very much to me as like the most plussed up version of the Buccaneers. It's like, yes, things have changed, but they are going to stay the exact same in my mind. And Jahmyr Gibbs as RB3, I'm just fine with it. He finished as the RB1 last year, if you include week 17, week 18, but the 17th week that these guys are playing. And when he was alone, when he is alone in the backfield, this is verifiable. When he is alone in the backfield, he is RB1.
Yes.
That's period. At even with Saquon's RB1 season, when Jahmyr Gibbs is alone in the backfield, he is the RB1. Period. So I am buying him as RB3.
I gotta sell it.
Interesting. Okay.
I gotta
Okay.
sell it. And
You gonna make a case for it, or just
here's
like,
why. Here's why. Well, yeah.
right.
Well, no, because Stone Cold said so. No, because so David Montgomery's still there, and they just extended him. Now,
Mhm.
if Jahmyr Gibbs is alone in the backfield, he then morphs into some sort of superhero, summons the spirit of Jamal Charles, and just does all kinds of unholy things to people facing him in fantasy leagues. But David Montgomery is still there, and David Montgomery is a fine running back. David Montgomery has the big back role in the offense where they're giving him the first crack at goal line touches. Along with that, Jahmyr Gibbs is still playing about 60% of the snaps, and I don't think that there's any reason for them to increase his workload to giving him 300 touches or increasing. I mean, he could go up as a pass catcher, which targets are more valuable than a rushing attempt. We know that. But the efficiency from a rushing standpoint is outstanding. We could only hope for more targets in the passing game. And I think that a full season of David Montgomery lends itself to being around 900 to 1,000 yards and 15 to 17 touchdowns. So I can't buy what could be the perceived ceiling of what, like, the best thing that we can hope for is this season again. And I don't think that this happens if David Montgomery doesn't get hurt.
Okay, so 2 counterpoints, because I understand the argument of very good run. I don't want to make this sound like an anti-David Montgomery opinion, but the fact is that of the 6 years that David Montgomery has played in the NFL, he has played less than 16 games 67% of the time. The last time that he played 16 or more games was 3 years ago. 2 years in a row, he's played 14 games. So I do not want to project injury, but running backs do not suddenly get healthier this late in their career. Less of Frank Gore. Okay, well, outside of Frank Gore, running backs do not get healthier they're later in their career. Okay, I wanted to throw. Hey, we gotta get rid of the infinity stone.
Gotta respect the infinite one.
Yeah, the infinity stone at running back. He was just he is in a league of his own. So outside of him, running backs do not get more durable or more healthy the later in their career that they go. And I think David Montgomery, when he plays, it's going to be exactly what you talked about. He's going to get the first crack of the goal line. He's going to have the majority of the yards and the touches on the ground. And Jahmyr Gibbs will still put up RB3 or better on the season.
Yeah, I can't buy here when there's other guys that are similar talents that have finished as RB1 before with no backfield competition.
Now, okay, I understand. We can move on. CeeDee Lamb comes in as wide receiver 3. Last year, he had 152 targets, 101 receptions, 1,194 yards, and 6 receiving touchdowns. I believe that was in 15 games as well. I'll vet that, but I'm pretty sure it was 15, not 16.
Yeah, I mean, they shut him down.
Yeah, 15.
Yeah, I mean, he was coming off the field with shoulder, popping out of socket or whatever it was doing against Tampa Bay. And then after that Tampa Bay game, when they somehow or another they were eliminated from the playoffs, and they just shut him down because they were like, let's not risk anything catastrophic on a lost season. So, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it just took them way too long to shut him down. He still puts up wide receiver 8 on 15 games, playing the majority of those 15 games with Cooper Rush at quarterback. With Cooper Rush at quarterback, he logged 2 wide receiver 1 weeks, like individual weeks. He was consistently putting up wide receiver 18, 14, 14. I guess 3, excuse me, because he had wide receiver 1, 11, and 6. In the middle of there was 18, 40, 14, 14, 68, and then 16 right before his season was shut off. But give him Dak, give him consistency with Schottenheimer as the play caller. Is CeeDee Lamb the receiver who you were thinking about putting in the tier with Jefferson and Chase?
Yeah,
Or
he's
was it Puka?
definitively in that tier for me, and no equivocation.
Okay, and I'm not going to argue that. I'm not going to argue that at all. I think that given the opportunity, given the consistency at quarterback and at play calling, I'm not going to argue against that at all. You ready to move on?
Yep.
Actually, wait, time out. Are you buying or selling a wide receiver 3?
100% buying.
Buying. It's a buy here as well.
Solid.
Puka Nacua is wide receiver 4, 106 targets, 79 receptions, 990 yards, and 3 touchdowns last year. He also missed significant time, and he is also going to see a massive upgrade, I think, in his opportunity because of the departure of Cooper Kupp. Last year, those numbers do come in 11 games. So he misses 6 games, and he still puts up 106, 79 for 990, and 3. Puka Nacua is a monster. They just nail their 5th-round draft picks. I am buying Puka Nacua as wide receiver 4 off the board, ahead of Nico Collins and Malik Neighbors.
Wowzers. I'm going to sell here.
Okay. And since I kind of mentioned those next 2 guys, and let me see. We'll talk about 4 wide receivers here in a row, and we can kind of talk about let's go ahead and re-rank these guys in our minds. So the next 4 wide receivers after Puka is Nico Collins, Malik Neighbors, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Brian Thomas Jr. Looking at that again, I would still have now personally I would go Puka, Brian Thomas Jr., Amon-Ra St. Brown, Malik Neighbors, Nico Collins. Where are you going?
I'm going Malik Neighbors. I'm going Amon-Ra St. Brown, Brian Thomas, Puka, and then Nico.
Okay, so you have, since we start off with Puka, Puka is ranked right around wide receiver 8 for you?
Correct.
Okay. Let's go ahead and get into the rest of them. Nico Collins, 99 targets, 68 receptions, 1,006 receiving yards, and 7 touchdowns last year. He also had an abbreviated season. He is going to have pretty much 0 competition for targets this year, unless you count slower and slowest Dalton Schultz. Tank Dell is going to miss the entirety of Christian Kirk, Christian Kirk most recently traded for. But still, I wouldn't I mean, I think competition comes with an asterisk next to it, but Nico Collins puts up those numbers in 12 games. What are you laughing at?
just you acknowledged it and they were like, yeah, whatever. And that's how I feel about it. But I just you expressing it was how I felt. I just had to be tongue in cheek and throw it in there.
I mean, Christian Kirk has a wide receiver 1 season under his belt, and we can't forget that. However, I believe what we do forget is that wide receiver core, the year that he did have his wide receiver 1 season, was wildly depleted. And he had his career high in touchdown receptions as well, his career high in receptions, his career high in targets, his career high in yards. Like, that was the stars were aligning, and that was the best Christian Kirk that we will ever get to see on the football field. And what we saw the year after that season and the year before that season, where he puts up 800 yards and 900 yards, and he goes for 90 targets and 100 targets, I think that's much closer to the truth. And I don't see that encroaching on Nico Collins' pie chart of target domination at all in this offense.
Well, the problem is he can't stay healthy, right? If he stays healthy, and yeah, if my aunt had a different setup, she'd be my uncle. But what I'm trying to say is, he was tit for tat with Calvin Ridley in 2023, and then last year he got hurt. I was really high on him coming in, and then Brian Thomas Jr. Ascended to new heights, and so I've gotta. Yeah. Anyway, we spent way too much time talking about Christian Kirk. That's gross, and I don't want to do it anymore. But I think that Nico Collins, like you said, doesn't have a lot of competition for targets. However, they are doing their best to get CJ Stroud in a full body cast by trading a franchise left tackle. and the interior of the offensive line looking like Swiss cheese, doing their best Swiss cheese impression on any pass set that they do. So
you're selling Nico Collins at wide receiver 5?
I am selling Nico Collins at wide receiver 5. Just for the record, that is sell Puka wide receiver 4, sell Nico Collins wide receiver 5, sell.
And then Malik Neighbors at wide receiver 6, 170 targets, 109 receptions, 1,204 yards, 7 touchdowns. He recently got a new quarterback. I don't think it'll be his new quarterback unless something happens in the draft. But Malik Neighbors is a buy for me at wide receiver 6, period.
Slam dunk buy. Yes. So we're talking about the guy. We're talking about the guy who missed 2 games, correct?
Yes.
He missed 2 games, and then Jalen waddled his way in several others. He sets the rookie record for targets in a season, which was 165. He sets the rookie record for receivers in receptions with 109. Finishes with 1,204 yards and 7 touchdowns, and that's with guys who should be all-state salesmen and or teamsters for the mob in New Jersey playing quarterback. So I think that the ceiling is the roof for Malik Neighbors this year with Jameis Winston potentially throwing him passes. We've seen several sharp minds in the industry call for it. They called for the Thunder, and now we have it potentially. We could get 5 of the greatest fantasy performances coupled with Jameis pregame speeches in human history. Like, they're going to write about this in textbooks if we still have textbooks in the year 2040.
I was thinking about this actually. Jameis dominates way too much in my mind. But
it's a happy place to be, though.
I'm not super mad about it. I just know it's too much.
Yeah. But our whole brand is built on too much caring about something that doesn't really exist way too much.
Okay. I stand corrected. But the signing of him going to New York, I think it's perfect. Because the whole stigma around guys signing New York is like, will they be able to handle the pressure? I don't even know if Jameis is going to be aware that there are reporters in the room. Okay, like this guy, he doesn't even know if he threw 5 interceptions or 5 touchdowns that game. Like he is, I think he is not oblivious is not the word, but he is. He's got the memory of a goldfish, man. He's like, whatever was good, whatever was bad, that's behind us. We can't go back in the past. All we have in front of us is we got the present and the future. That's all we got left. And I think that he's going to be perfect for the New York media and for feeding Malik Neighbors targets if he can hold on to the starting job. I think he called it, though. It's going to be a fantastic 5 weeks, and then he's going to get benched for doing something Jameis-like.
100%. I mean, you got to think about, his response to busting with the boys when he said, "There'll never be a quarterback that breaks my record." They don't have the confidence. When he's talking about throwing 30 touchdowns and 30 interceptions, he said there'll never be a quarterback to be able to do that. They don't have the confidence. So when you're talking about a dude, this is one of the most decorated collegiate football players of all time, a former number 1 overall pick who is just gonna grip it and rip it. Like I said, this first 5 weeks is gonna be just monumental. I'm gonna be tapped in to OTAs and stuff just because I need to see what Jameis and Malik Neighbors is looking like. That first moon ball that he throws to Malik Neighbors, I'm gonna lose my mind. You hear me? I am ridiculously excited about this.
Okay, we have gone on about Malik Neighbors enough. Amon-Ra St. Brown at wide receiver 7. I am a sell. You're a buy, correct? You went Malik Neighbors and Amon-Ra St. Brown at 5-6?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then Brian Thomas Jr. at wide receiver 8. I am obviously buying wide receiver 8. I would buy him as early as wide receiver 6. 133 targets, 87 receptions, 1,282 yards, 10 touchdowns. The majority of his production did come with Mac Jones. That is something to keep in mind. Mac Jones no longer on the team. But Brian Thomas Jr. obviously doesn't need Mac Jones throwing him the ball. He needs Trevor Lawrence to play like the number one overall pick that he was, like the $262 million man that he is. And yeah, that's end of story. Brian Thomas Jr. is fantastic. Wide receiver 8's a lock for you, correct?
Absolutely. Stamp it, lock it down.
At 12, this is the kind of the first spot where we get to a lot of discussion in my mind. Ashton Jeanty comes in at RB4. RB4. I'm not going to list his college stats. If you know anything about college football, you already know this guy looks like Michael Myers hanging out in the backfield before he gets the ball. He does not go down on first contact. He is one of the better rushing prospects that I've seen in college, and I'm absolutely selling RB4. Absolutely.
Yeah. No, yeah. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. You don't even need to bring your luggage, man. I'm sending you on up the road at RB4, brother. I want no parts of it. I don't care about the landing spot. There are proven guys. We do this almost every year, and rarely is it a hit when we say, hey, college running back guy, we're going to take you in the top 5 and it's going to be great. We did it with Jonathan Taylor and it wasn't great. We did it. we did it. I believe we didn't do it with Jahmyr Gibbs. And that was a smash. We did it with Bijan. We did it with Bijan.
Yep.
And that did not feel good. Had you questioning stuff. So yeah, no, selling this all day long. You know, if you're buying this, I got some beachfront property in Idaho for you, champ.
Next, we got Devon Achane at RB5. 203 rushing attempts, 907 rushing yards, 6 touchdowns, 87 targets, 78 receptions, 592 receiving yards, and 6 receiving touchdowns. Before we say which side of this that we're on, I did want to discuss the repercussions or the possible changes that we will see in the offensive dynamic this year with Tua possibly playing a full season. Again, we do not want to project injury, but last year obviously changed the way that this offense functioned and the way that they were trying to move the ball down the field during his absence and also after he came back. Like they ran through the air and it was a lot of these quick hitters, and it was the offense ran through Devon Achane because apparently Tyreek Hill fell off and he retired and didn't tell anybody unless he's actually still good, which we don't know anymore. Like, there are questions around this offense. How do you feel about it?
Well, I mean, we went over this during the running back review episode, and I mean it is stark and drastic. In 22 games with Tua, he's rushed for 1,400 yards, averages 5.8 yards a carry, and has 13 rushing touchdowns to go along with 94 receptions for another 727 yards. This sounds ridiculous, and 9 receiving touchdowns. Now then, if we take Tua away, those numbers become rather pedestrian. In 6 games, he's got 286 yards rushing to go with 62 yards receiving and 1 total touchdown. Does that answer your question about how I feel about Tua for a whole?
No, not at all. I know that with Tua it's good, and without Tua it's bad. But we're trying to project for next year. We're drafting for next year. We're not drafting in 2024. So how does that make you feel about RB5 into 2025? What are you projecting?
Oh, I'm selling this because Kamikaze Tua could just ruin all my plans.
All right. I am buying this because I believe in the talent, and I think that McDaniel is going to be coaching for his job this season. So he is. They have, outside of last year, the first 2 years of him being in Miami, they have gotten off to fantastic starts, and the league has kind of figured them out. But for offensive production, for our fake game of football played on spreadsheets, it's been very productive. Devon Achane has obviously been a recipient of that for the last 2 years. I'm buying Devon Achane at RB5 at the overall 13th pick in the draft. He'd be the first pick of the second round. Imagine you could go, let's say, Brian Thomas Jr., Devon Achane to start your draft. I would be happy with that personally. But
Yeah, I'd be bricked up in the cement aisle, sure.
as the 14th overall pick at RB6, we've got Derrick Henry. Last year, he put up 325 rushing attempts, 1,921 rushing yards, 16 rushing touchdowns, 22 targets, 19 receptions, and 2 receiving touchdowns for the man in Baltimore. Are you buying RB6 for Derrick Henry?
Bye.
Buy RB6. Interesting. I will. Who do we have behind him?
You got actually.
I'm selling Christian. I'm not selling Christian McCaffrey. I'm selling Derrick Henry because of who I see behind him and what I see as the upside. Statistically, biologically, it has to end sometime.
Is that how you feel about Mike Evans?
I don't know that it's this year. I don't know if that's like a Max Kellerman argument where it's like, well, eventually he's not going to be good at football. It's like, yeah, no duh. Are you really being Nostradamus with that one, Max? But I 325 rushing attempts is a lot for a 31-year-old. Is he 31?
Yeah.
Yeah, for a 31-year-old turning 32 into the 2025 football season. They had an excellent year offensively. I'm selling Derrick Henry as RB6, even though he finished last year as RB6, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, because right now at RB7, we've got Christian McCaffrey. And I'm not going to list his numbers because he only played for 4 games because of some tendonitis in his Achilles. I am so considering just playing with the fire of the Christian McCaffrey pick. I think this will be the last player that we get to, but I think I really wanted to get to Christian McCaffrey to hear your take on what he could look like in 2025.
I mean, what he could look like is what he gave you in that first 18 minutes of the Buffalo game before he tore his PCL and ended the season. So I sell this because there's a guy right behind him that has been durable and has he hasn't eclipsed the 400 touch mark in the last 2 seasons, and that makes him a tremendous value to me. I have to sell Christian McCaffrey here because I would have to have a little bit more of a bump in value on him to be in for 2025.
Christian McCaffrey has had such an odd career. It's going to be hard to look back and compare him to other running backs because the vast majority of running backs, when they have catastrophic injuries and they miss multiple years or a significant amount of games in consecutive years, they don't come back from that. That's not normal. And not only did he come back, he put up a significant season, then he put up an RB1 season. Also not normal. So, and then he comes back with another injury that is ankle related because I think his first injury that he went out with in Carolina was an ankle injury, or were both of them ankle related?
No, one was his shoulder.
Yeah, one was his shoulder and the other one was an ankle. I So that's the reason that I don't think you can count McCaffrey out as a possibility to be the overall RB1 and being able to snag someone. Like I don't think that you're referencing Jonathan Taylor. At this point in his career with Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones as his quarterback, I don't think he can get to RB1, especially with the lack of pass catching. Bucky Irving, I love him dearly. I don't think that he can get to RB1 with the offense and having to split touches with Rashad White. Josh Jacobs, he just doesn't have enough pass catching in his not in the profile, but in the offense as a whole from what we saw last year to get to RB1. Like there is still a chance that is in the range of outcomes for Christian McCaffrey to come back. And the only reason I say that is because we've seen it before.
Yeah,
So
I mean
I
everything
would
you
be
just
buying
said
Christian
about
McCaffrey at RB7.
yeah, everything you just said about Christian McCaffrey is. I mean, I feel like I would rather just take the safety with Derrick Henry or Jonathan Taylor. I just don't want
And
to.
I think the majority.
I don't want a
Go
zero
ahead.
there.
That's and he could be a zero. That's and that's why he's at RB7. He's either a zero if he plays 17 games and he plays the majority of snaps for 17 games. He will be a top 5 back. He will easily outperform his ADP if he plays the volume of snaps that he has always played his career when healthy. But if he doesn't, it's an absolute zero. So that is a choice you have to live with. We have recapped the top 15 players by ADP in best ball drafts, and those players were Jamar Chase, Saquon Barkley, Bijan Robinson, Justin Jefferson, Jameer Chase, CeeDee Lamb, Puka Nacua, Nico Collins, Malik Neighbors, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Brian Thomas Jr., Ashton Jeanty, Devon Achane, Derrick Henry, and Christian McCaffrey. We've given our buy or sell opinions on each of those players. Thank y'all very much for listening, liking, downloading, subscribing, all that fun stuff. If you could follow us on our socials, on X, formerly known as Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, and TikTok, we would greatly appreciate it. On the Fantasy Sports Advice Network, I am Brick316, and Justin is Chev90. Also, last thing that I'll say, if you could please leave a 5-star review on whatever listening platform you are currently taking in this podcast on, whether it's Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever have you, we would greatly appreciate it. Thank you all very much for listening. Y'all have a great night.